It does matter because I want to know what politicians actually take into consideration motorcycle rights, right?
Oo.
Yun.
That's
Tsaka
relevant.
magparehistro na yung mga hindi pa nakarehistro.
To vote, you mean?
Yeah, mga voters.
Akala ko motor.
Nakita niyo yung bagong Nakita niyo yung bagong bill, yung gagawing mahigpit
Ano
na
yan?
yung mga muffler.
Ha?
Oo, yun.
Tapos parang in a very weird tayo lahat, naka-big bike naman tayo lahat dito. Pero for some reason, exempted daw ang big bike sa batas na open pipe. Na
Sino
bawal
na naman
batas.
gumawa niyan?
Alam mo naman yung mga gumagawa ng batas, naka-big bike sila lahat. Hindi sila naka-Mio, 'di ba? Hindi. So syempre,
Mga loko-loko yan.
kailangan sayang yung motor nila. So yung mga gumagawa ng batas, sila yung naglagay ng exemption. But I think that's incredibly unfair.
Oo.
Umaangal tayo sa double standards ng mga checkpoint ng motorsiklo lang sinisita.
Tapos
Ito
sila
parang
mismo may double standards.
double standard sa loob ng ating community, di ba? Imbis na nagkakaisa tayo.
Pero
Nagkakaingitan.
alam mo iba, kung gusto mo mawala yung noise pollution,
Mhm.
i-push mo ang mga electric bikes.
Ganda ng segue na yan And that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode.
Ha? Yun ba yung topic natin ngayon?
What a coincidence.
Talaga? Galing naman.
Shamba.
Okay.
Back to you, Iba.
Back to you, Buck.
Back to you, Jolly.
Back to you, Buck.
I'm just sharing the link.
20 seconds.
20 seconds. Oh, yeah. Hey, Joseph, what's up? Dalawang Joseph. Lahat ng viewers natin, Joseph.
Ang daming yan Joseph sa friends list ko. Ang dami nga, parang 12 yata silang Joseph. Nalilito na ako kung sino sila.
What's up, mga katunay? All right, we've got a really serious topic this week, man. I think we're going to go super technical, and we're going to be talking about the future of motorcycles, and it's electric. So,
Wala si Jenna. Idea niya to
as usual, Jenna brings the chaos. If she wants to show up, she shows up. If she wants to wake up, she wakes up. And the door is open. She'll come right in if she can. So, Tunay Na Rider has become yung pinaka-walang kwentang game show sa balat ng Pasig. Following that line, we're going to be giving away otterbox cases and something, you guys know what it is, something from our friends at Adventure Motorsports, Yuasa.
Yun.
And if you guys want to donate a prize, which was what happened 2 shows ago, feel free. Kahit ano, food, Joseph Yaranon, kung may pares
bigas.
ka pa.
Kung may kaban ng bigas dyan.
All right. Yeah, and I'm going to intro a good friend of mine. I've known him for years and years and years. I knew him when he was one of the executives, the KTM, right? He has been in the motorcycle industry for 14 years, and it's kind of unbelievable. So since high school. He's the reason KTMs are manufactured here in the Philippines. Well, not the sole reason. Hindi siya yung gumagawa. Siyempre may mga partners. He's one of the movers, one of the executives, because he is Filipino by blood, but Canadian by citizenship. So he felt that if he was gonna, while working with KTM, he wanted it to be in the Philippines, right? Kasi may special place in his heart.
Oh.
He's not. Then he got tired of the Philippines. And he moved to Singapore, where he's now the chief commercial officer of one of the most cutting-edge electric mobility companies in the world. It's called Scorpio. There's not. There are very. There's a lot of teasers, and I want to tread carefully as to what he can share about it. And maybe Bianca, we can show that picture of Julian on the Scorpio, so people have an idea, because this is the only picture I've ever seen of the full Scorpio bike. All right.
For your eyes only yan.
There'll be many years. Yeah, exactly.
You don't. This is the only place I've seen this picture.
Yeah.
All right. So that's where he's at now. We can minimize it. Yeah. We again, my good buddy.
Tago mo muna. Ma-CIA tayo niyan.
Oo nga, tago mo muna. Julian Legazpi. Hey, Julian. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, pleasure to be here. Love listening to you guys. It's good to be on the show. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Siya yung isang Singaporean viewer, a listener natin.
Oo.
Siya pala yun. Siya pala yung one.
Siya yun.
That might be me.
And, as usual, we've got Buck Birthday Pago. Happy birthday, Buck.
Birthday ko ba?
And
thank you. Uy, daming bumati.
Oo.
Mamaya papadala ko yung GCash, ano yung QR code? Mag-deposit na lang kayo.
mas madaming hits yung bati natin kay Buck kaysa doon sa mga normal nating mga posts eh.
That's true.
Ayan.
I just want to say that self-portrait yon. I did not take the picture of Buck naked. That was Buck's self-portrait. Yung shinare namin sa page. I just put
talaga.
birthday. And then we've got Jolly Cakes Alarcon, and of course me, Iba. Jenna bringing the chaos, and of course, because she is chaos, sometimes she shows up, sometimes she doesn't.
That's okay. That's cool.
She'll be here. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like yesterday when she came in, it's just like boom,
yeah,
like,
and then she leaves.
Exactly.
All right, so yeah, without further ado,
sige, Iba. Bago tayo magsimula sa ating episode, i-share muna natin yung ating sikreto sa pag-monetize ng ating podcast. Ang Podmetrics. Kasi ang Podmetrics is a platform kung saan tayo nakokontrol natin kung paano natin na ma-monetize ang ating show. So, dun sa mga podcasters, existing podcasters, at saka sa mga gustong maggawa ng podcast, mag-sign up kayo by clicking the link dun sa description of this episode and using the referral code Tunay Na Rider. All caps, no space. So you can monetize your podcast too. Tapos, meron pa rin tayong Tunay Na Rider coffee dun sa mga naghahanap ng kape ng Tunay Na Rider sa ating Shopee. Ayan. Tapos,
Tunay Na Rider coffee and Lakbay brew.
Dun sa ating sa ating mga pa-premium mamaya. Ano nga bang pa-premium natin, Iba?
Otterbox case.
Ayun.
Thanks to our partners in Otterbox, which is basically me.
At saka Adventure Sport Yuasa. Meron tayong mga coupons.
Nice.
And Doc Christine. Thanks, guys.
Ayan. So, para makasali kayo sa raffle, meron kami, ang ating raffle question for today is, would you buy an electric bike? Why or why not? Tapos yung mga sumagot, sasali tayo sa raffle. Walang maling sagot.
Huwag mo na isali si Monsit.
Pwede na.
Pwede na ba?
Nag-guest na siya, namigay rin. Naging wild yung show natin with him eh.
Okay.
Okay
Hindi kasi
na.
andito si Bing eh. Baka magtampo si Direk Bing eh.
All right. So yeah, and please share the show so we can get more peeps watching, so that we can give more stuff to more people and hang out. All right. I'm going to start. And it's tough because I know the answers to the questions I'm asking. So I'm going to pretend I don't know. Like I said, I've known Julian for a long time. So, yeah, Julian, how did you get into the motorcycle business at the age of 14?
Yeah, in high school, right out of high school,
It's
basically.
cool.
I was a motorcycle prodigy for working in the industry. No, actually, how it started was I'd always been interested in bikes and automotive business, but I was doing my MBA actually, and the last stop of my program was in Austria, and in Austria we were paired with a couple of companies. I just so happened that I was paired with KTM. I did my thesis for KTM. They loved my presentation. Basically, it was how do we expand into Asia? This was like 12 years ago now. It seems like a lifetime ago. They liked it and they hired me the next day. And then from there, they kind of moved me around the world. And ultimately, after living in Austria for a couple of years, Indonesia, they moved me to Singapore. And then
So school project mo yung KTM.
yes,
And
it
then
was. It was
KTM.
yeah.
And then they're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
we're going to hire you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not kidding. And I actually looked at my thesis a couple of years ago, and I'm like, it was exactly how it played out. So the last 10 years was basically how do I turn this into reality? And actually, part of it was a CKD factory in Southeast Asia. So we had done a lot of the research for the region.
Prodigy talaga.
not quite high school.
But yeah.
So it was cool because we were looking for at the time we were looking for building a factory for the region, and it just so happened. I mean, I'd done the research for every country in the region: Indonesia, Thailand, and a lot of the factories like Ducati, like Honda, like all these brands were in Thailand, Piaggio in Vietnam. But the Philippines was interesting, and at the time the incentives were very good, and Thai labor is a bit more expensive, and we've ultimately decided on the Philippines being the market. We're the only one to actually, or KTM is the only one to actually have a factory in the Philippines that serves the region. It took a bit of a rocky start, but eventually when we landed with our amazing partners, or before, I'm still friends to this day, with Ayala, it was just a kind of a match made in heaven. The business is doing very well. KTM it's one of the biggest markets, and it's I think the biggest market in the region still for KTM, one of the biggest in Asia, or maybe number 2 in Asia. The team is fantastic, passionate people, great management, and I'm just very, very happy that we were able to do that. It was a great time in my life, building that out, and obviously proud, because I'm Filipino at the end of the day, and it was always a dream, and it was a real pleasure to make that happen.
And it made all of the riders here proud to have one of the best bikes in the world manufactured and assembled here in the Philippines. That is, we can hold our heads up with pride having KTMs being built here.
Absolutely, and serving the world. It serves China, which is like the most random. Normally it's the other way around. We serve Philippines serves China, which is really cool. So it was a great project.
So that's thanks to Julian. All right, so you spent most of your all of your professional life, right, in KTM, and they're an awesome brand. We love KTM. Buck and I both have KTMs.
The best bike in
Dino, the best bike in the world as of now, right? Why
sponsor
from combustion to electric?
That's a great question. And Iba, we've talked about this quite a few times.
Oh yeah.
For me, it started actually in 2015, around there, 2015. And so every year I go to EICMA in Italy, which you guys know is the biggest motorcycle show in the world. And in 2015 was the first year that I saw New and Go Girl, the very first time. And I was walking through the halls of EICMA and I said, this is cool. Electric is actually cool. It's going to happen. And it just, I kind of sparked the interest in me. I mean, I'd always been really interested in electric even before that, but to see it in real life in really, really cool products that people were buying. And at the time, I know, Iba, you were really into New at the time. And it just kind of, the interest just grew. And year on year, I was always excited. And, Unfortunately, the electric, let's say, revolution within KTM just took a little bit longer. There are other priorities, but I always kind of figured that would be what the future would be. It was clear then, as it is even more clear to me, that I wouldn't say all electric or combustion will be replaced, but certainly a lot of it will be replaced by electric. And I'm really, really excited to see it and be a part of that future.
All right. So you moved to this super secret brand, right? That's why you're in Singapore now, because that's where it's headquartered. And we can share, it's called Scorpio.
Yep.
Why did you make that decision to move to Scorpio, and what made it super awesome and attractive to you?
Well, I mean, it was an idea that we had for years, actually, and the backing partner was a really just enthusiast, obviously well capitalized. We felt that was a really cool opportunity to do something here. I think one of the reasons when you think about electric, you're able to play around with positioning a little bit differently than combustion, because there's, it's a wide open canvas. You can be expensive, you can be cheap, you can really pick where you want to be, where your plot of land will be in the village, let's say it like that. And I just love the vision of what we were trying to do, to be a little bit more premium, not cookie cutter, something different, and add a flavor of performance and the kind of passion that combustion motorcycle folks like you guys and myself have into electric, which is really missing, I would say, in the electric space, because you have, it's a lot of commodity from China or maybe something from India, a little bit from Taiwan. All of it is just to get from point A to point B, which is a very, very important segment. But there is, I believe, a hole for people like us to be like, hey, I want something cooler than that. I do want to go a little bit obnoxiously fast, and I do want to, have a badass suspension, and I do want to have, all the best technology. I want to have all of that, but I also don't want to pay $50,000 for that. So I felt that was a really cool position for us to be in. And being a Singaporean brand, there's a lot of great talent here for sure, especially in terms of technology talent. And I was just kind of excited about how all of this, like this canvas could look, what this painting could look like. And it's been a really fun ride so far.
All right. Speaking of technology, we partnered with NordVPN through Podmetric for you guys to also enjoy this. For you guys to also enjoy the same experience. They have an amazing promo right now that allows you to get 73% off the 2-year plan plus 4 months free when you use our link in the description and the code TNR before checking out. They also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for NordVPN now.
Nice.
Okay ba yung segue? Jolly, ikaw na.
Seamless na segue yung iba.
Oh,
Ayun.
nandito si Boss Wars. Humihingi
Hey!
raffle ba yung Scorpio? Actually, no. What we'll do is we'll raffle the chance to buy a Scorpio.
Okay.
Exclusivity.
Oo. Exclusive yung Scorpio eh.
Yeah. There you go. Maybe we can offer a T-shirt or something. Maybe we can work on that.
Yan. All right, Scorpio T-shirt.
Pero kailangan nilang pick upin sa Singapore.
Yeah. No, I'll ship it over. Don't worry. We can make that happen.
Ayan. My turn. Ito, yung mga electric bikes ngayon, they're becoming so popular for the past few years na, di ba? Do you think there's parang yung impact of global emission regulations, they're becoming stricter? Does it play a factor on why it's becoming so popular?
Yeah, I'd say, I'd like to say that electric is so cool that everyone wants to have an electric bike, but that's not necessarily the case. I think the biggest driver for electric mobility all around the world is going to be through government push. And you saw this even years ago. The emission standards for cars and motorcycles continue to go up. So now we're at motorcycles something like a Euro 5, Euro 6. It's very different from years ago. When I first started in KTM, we were at Euro 2, Euro 3, and now we're at Euro 6. And that ultimately creates a lot of supply pressure from the big brands, because they always have to constantly reinvest and invest in new technology to get better emissions. What that does is it consolidates with bigger brands, and the smaller brands end up suffering the most out of this, because to create a new line or a new product, you ultimately have to be able to create scale. So either you become really, really niche, but if you want to become a middle-end player, it's going to be and you're going to end up having lesser and lesser and lesser players because of emissions. But at the same time, electric mobility is getting a lot cheaper. Main reason is because the battery itself is significantly cheaper than it was 10 years ago. Bloomberg came out with a study just like last year, showing that the cell of a battery. So within, let's say, a pack, okay, there's like, let's say, hundreds of cells, let's say, in a car, and let's say, maybe 50 cells in an electric vehicle, more or less. That's kind of what the price of the cells has come down so much. Has come down maybe 6 times since in the last 10 years. And it will probably end up getting cut in half in the next 5. So if we're already very close to parity, or if not already cheaper already to have an electric bike over the lifetime, in a few years, it's going to be significantly cheaper than a combustion vehicle when you consider all elements. So these are the things that are going to really drive electromobility. And I think, so I'd say that starts with that. I mean, again, it's, what makes it different is this kind of the challenger industry. It will not, you're going to end up having a lot of people of, let's say, an older generation that might not, jump on, but the next generation of riders is certainly looking at this. So you have to look at it from a demographic perspective as well. It's at the right time. I mean, I think it's clear what Tesla has done. I think what, everyone likes to reference Tesla and like, are you the Tesla of this? And there's only going to be one Tesla. There's only going to be one Elon Musk. The same way there was only one Henry Ford 100 years ago. I mean, Henry Ford didn't invent the car. Actually, he just was the first one to figure out how to create an efficient line and make money out of a car. And Tesla, Elon Musk didn't. He actually wasn't even the founder of Tesla. Actually, he was a co-founder of Tesla, and he didn't invent the electric vehicle. The electric vehicle's been around for decades. He just figured out a way to create a brand around it and to make it cheap enough and affordable enough for it to be cool and relevant. And he did that within 10 years. He ended up creating one of the biggest and most important brands in the world. So this shift is all part and parcel of what will happen, I believe. And I think governments will certainly be the ones to push it forward. And demographics will also support that as well.
So I just want to add, Julian, Jolly, child genius rin yan. Because when he was in college, you built an electric car, or was it like a solar-powered car? You built a couple of these, right, Jolly?
Hindi solar kasi wala kaming budget pang gawa ng solar.
Ano yan? Elon Musk ng Pilipinas yan.
For 3 years straight kasi nasali ako dun sa Shell Eco Marathon for dun sa Don Bosco.
Also, you're interested in
yung namin, yung mga una naming attempts, mga diesel, then it became diesel hybrid. Then nung pinakahuling year, nung ako na yung parang sa akin na binigay yung ano mang gusto mong gawin, nag-pure electric na kami. Kasi, ito yung you said yung may push dapat sa government. Pero yung government would really react more on kung ano yung demand din ng mga tao eh. Sa tingin ko, ang one of the biggest hurdles ng electric na vehicles is may notion siya na it's so complicated compared to combustion engines. Pero, di ba, yung pinag-usapan natin kahapon, ilan yung parts count ng isang ICE compared sa electric vehicle?
Yeah, that's a complete
Jolly, explain what ICE is.
Internal combustion engine.
Yeah. That's a weird enough, a strange idea actually. For a motorcycle, a combustion vehicle has maybe a couple thousand parts when you think about every single nut and bolt. And when we were doing with the KTM, you realize actually how many parts are in a vehicle when they come in and you have to put it together. But an electric bike, it's less than it's a couple hundred parts total. And the motor itself is an extremely, let's say, simple design. Don't ask me, I'm not an engineer, but I more or less understand how it works and different. But in general, the electric vehicles are significantly easier to maintain. They're simpler in design and way less parts. It's one of the reasons why when you consider lifetime value, this is the thing. This would be the new kind of way you justify and look at price. Is that the cost to service electric vehicles is significantly cheaper. It's actually one of the reasons why the business model of electric may be different, because one of the ways that the automotive industry has made tons of money in the last 100 years, the main business model for, let's say, a retailer or a dealer is actually not the sale of the vehicle, it's the after sales. That's one of the main profit drivers of dealerships. But when you have an electric bike, you don't have that necessary need for all that. So for sure you still need, but it will not necessarily supplement what will happen. So I think these are the things that are very important.
Grabe, nagdi-debate na.
At saka,
Comment section, dude.
at saka
One
one
of
of the...
them. I just want to say to our friends in Iloilo, you have not tried the right electric bike. baka CDR King electric bike yan. But you gotta try some of the high-end bikes, man. It's crazy.
Well, the thing is, I liken this, the Philippines, obviously in the Philippines, especially in Southeast Asia, there are no really good electric bikes. That's the fact. I mean, the only places you're going to find electric bikes are going to be maybe in Europe and maybe a handful of cities in America. This is so new. There's like, you probably haven't even heard of the equivalents of Ducati in electric, or the equivalent of KTM. You haven't even heard of it, actually. So it's hard to say.
I just want to say, Gino, Buck and Jolly are not serious. Hindi lang nila naiintindihan si Julian.
Naintindihan ko naman, delay lang.
Delay lang. Nag-iisip pa sila. May konting lag. Lag.
Bianca, up mo nga tong sinabi ni Bing Basit.
Hindi kami nagsabi nito, ah.
I know, Bing.
Patay
I see the comment section now.
Pwede pa rin naman lagyan ng exhaust yung electric bike, pero
Lalagyan mo ng lata yung gulong.
Okay, Gino's got a good question. Can you register electric bikes? So recently, there have been some moves from the Department of Energy, and we'll go into that a little bit later, in partnership with the Department of Transportation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of bills that are going to be passed that will allow you. But right now, yes, you can register. I've seen registered electric bikes, but right now I'm definite that you can register electric four-wheeled vehicles. But I think, Julian, you've done research on that.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, for me, it's okay. I don't want to get too technical, but since this is going to be a bit technical, I'll give a bit of a reason. The Philippines, it's a matter of time before the Philippines will fully figure this out, just because the Philippines, in terms of policy, is a follower country relative to, let's say, all of Southeast Asia in general are follower countries to the EU standards. The EU standards have been established for years now. And as a result, the newest, I just checked it out, the newest LTO report, it actually very much mirrors, even the naming is exactly the same as in Europe. So how it's implemented is a different thing. But you see, this right here is exactly the reason why, when you think about innovation versus the demand or of products, there's always going to be a lag between what government does and what innovation is. It's a point from, let's say, Bitcoin, for example, right? At a certain point, it gets really interesting, and the governments go, "How do we tax this? How do we make money from this?" Because it's not something that they can, like a currency. And the same thing for electric. I mean, here in Singapore, which is a very sophisticated country, one of the reasons why it's so difficult to do this is because the government doesn't know how to tax electric. If you're going to lose money on fuel taxes, then how are they going to? Where is the justification for electric? Because they're going to lose money from fuel. And the same thing is probably what's happening in the Philippines, is because they tax in the importation of oil and blah, 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 blah. So they're thinking about these things. So policymakers are always looking at, how do I, we have to, make money basically from this. How do we make it work within our system? So all of these things are going to be worked out as the business grows. I think in countries like the Philippines, we're still very much at the first mover, people who find interesting and cool. But in time, if you get the chance to ride an electric bike in Taiwan or you get to ride a bike in Europe, they're so fun. I tell you, it's a different experience entirely. They're so fun, there's I think a better way to travel, and I really do believe that. I mean, yeah. So I'm biased though, yeah. So
yun yung ano eh, yun yung ako kasi din yun yung ang para sa atin in the Philippines, when you say electric bike kasi I think the first thing that comes to people in people's minds is the yung mga CDR King, yung mga bicycle na may bike. Hindi pa sila nakakakita or nakakasubok nung tipong high-end na mga tipong electric bike that can compete with KTM, with Ducati, di ba?
Magkakaroon na soon.
Okay, I'm just gonna share something. I'm gonna share something. Hold on, give me 1 second. So this is a toy that Buck and Jolly and I got to play around with. This is the fastest electric scooter in the Philippines right now.
Katakot yan.
Oh, that's a good look. That's a nice looking display.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, the power curve is insane.
Cool. 2, 3. That sounds pretty badass.
Yeah, I tell you.
Point out ko lang yung point out ko lang
people,
yung sinabi ni King. Sorry, point out ko lang yung sinabi ni King na getting from point A to point B, electric vehicles are great, but for spirited rides, the sensation, look, sound, vibration, exhaust, sound intake, banging, and everything. Yan yung hindi naman mawawala din syempre yung mga internal combustion engines. Tipong yun talaga yung kinalakihan natin. And pwede naman tipong Sunday bike talaga yun eh. Pero kung ang pag-uusapan, mobility, electric bikes ang ang pinaka anong tawag doon? Yung may silbi?
But
I just want to add before Julian, when I use this bike, this scooter, and usually when I'm on my combustion scooter, right, my Vespa or my Cub or my ADV, and I'm on the at the stoplight, I let everybody pass. Every single time on this electric bike, I am first out of the gate. I leave everyone behind. And it's freaking crazy because sobrang chill rider ako. And I just look at because it's not the top speed. It's just the freaking torque is ridiculous.
There's no power curve on electric. It's just you go from
like
you
zero
from
up. Yung curve niya parang talagang straight line.
So the thing is very different.
Pero parang if you give an analogy dito sa sinabi nga ni King, may point siya yung masaya yung pag-ride ng lumang bike. Pero parang alam mo yung like sa mga camera ngayon, high-tech na yung mga camera ngayon, di ba? Yung may mga autofocus, mga digital na lahat. Pero some people are still using the manual film lenses out of gusto nila mahirap gamitin, masaya.
Old Volkswagens, right? I love old Vespas. I'll always love bikes. Pero hindi natin like kahit obsolete na yung technology, that doesn't mean na we're not gonna use it anymore. Pero yung for more practical reasons, we use the better
yung practical,
ones.
Yun yung word na hinahanap ko kanina.
But I would argue again, I think you brought up the point. At the end of the day, whenever there's innovation, you're always going to have this conflict of people that liked a certain thing, which is basically what is the emotion that this is what we as brands do. We look at the emotions, and old brands like KTM and blah blah. I love this. They're harping on
old
nostalgia.
Brand now, old brand.
It's true. They're harping on nostalgia. It's nostalgia. I mean, you think about it. Like I love driving manual cars. Yeah,
right. Their history of winning the Dakar, their history of winning on the track, on off-road. That's the pedigree of KTM.
Yeah.
Tsaka yung nostalgia, malakas talaga yun. May mga kainan nga dyan na nostalgia lang ang habol, maski di naman masarap.
But when there's change, there's always going to be that. There's always going to be a misconception and a kind of a a negative feeling toward what's going to happen. I mean, the same thing with Bitcoin. People don't like Bitcoin, but they're like, oh, the dollar is the thing of Bitcoin. So, I love driving standard cars, and after a certain amount of time, it's like I couldn't care less about driving a standard car. I just want to be able to just go So there are a lot of different things, and innovation ultimately, when you ride it and people get used to it, there's always going to be a better way of doing it, and that's just the history of mankind in general. And when you think about electric, I can go on and on and on about the benefits of electric. The form factor can be different. The weight is going to be lighter. You have significantly more torque and power with an electric bike than versus a combustion. I mean, you take a Tesla, the family car Tesla, the Model 3, and you can Google it on Top Gear right now. You put that on a drag race with like Porsches and stuff. The Model 3 will actually win, and that's a family car. Right, when you put it in the ludicrous modes, because the technology of the motor basically, essentially, there's no friction when the thing is moving, basically, because it's magnetized. That's what a motor is essentially. It's a magnetized way of creating inertia to move forward. Whereas a combustion relies on that friction, and that's the reason why we love that feeling of sound and smell. And it's the same thing. I mean, like two strokes. I love two strokes. I grew up on that smell, right? But these days, you don't find that anymore. So that nostalgia that two strokes, we need two strokes. Actually, you know what? Four strokes are perfectly fine. Or fuel injected, the TPI with the KTM has, that's also okay too. So innovation you always have that negative sentiment, and until there's a better way. Innovation is something you simply cannot stop.
Actually, interesting din yun kasi right now, yung trend sa marketing in motorcycles is that yung retro old school, it's all the rage. So they're selling that heritage, that connect
up. Galing
talaga
ng
load
Advan
internet
to the buyers, consumers' emotions.
Yep.
Magkakaroon pa rin talaga ng problema between that heritage getting babangga siya sa innovation. Those are two really.
Yeah, I would say that's an interesting thing. I remember years ago, I was again sitting at EICMA and we were watching the launch of the Ducati Scrambler when I was at KTM, and I was sitting in the KTM booth and I said, "This is a fad. I didn't get this. This was in 2015 or whatever." And I loved it. I thought it looked really cool. I'm like, "This is a fad. This is just a way." I thought at the time this is a way for Ducati to be relevant in a cheaper segment because they were having a hard time getting volume. This is the problem now with these brands is volume. At the end of the day, you need to make profit. Ducati is not a profitable brand. Hasn't been for a long time, even under Volkswagen. Basically, you need to hit that's what I was telling you before. Like what emission standards are doing, and make it more and more difficult for brands to make money. And there are only a few handful of brands that are actually making money in this industry. What KTM did was build scale with the Dukes. That was one of the reasons why KTM was able to kind of rise above those brands. Ducati was always focused on segments with aging populations, aging demographics. So that Scrambler made a lot of sense at the time because it was going to attract a new wave of potential customers. And we were all thinking to ourselves, this is just, the Ducati Scrambler engine is a very old engine from the 90s. Basically, they slapped it into a bike, made a new brand, made a fantastic branding. I said, this is going to be a fad. But actually, it wasn't. It was a huge deal. I believe they were the ones to set along with Triumph, to create this new standard of customization and nostalgia. And I think that's very important. But you got to think again, why? At the end of the day, motorcycles are very nostalgic, because there was a golden age of that years ago, and people want to come back to that basically. So what's driving motorcycles in many ways is kind of like this older feeling of what made it cool. And that's more the reason why it's so hard for people to kind of like realize actually there's a better way to do it. There's a more efficient way to do it. Maybe not. I wouldn't even say electric is even that much. It's not even better yet. I'll even admit that because I'm a motorcycle guy. I love motorcycles. Don't get me wrong. I love combustion vehicles. I love riding them. I've ridden them since I was a kid. But in time, the way you're seeing with electric cars, you will see the same thing with motorcycles. We're just in the first inning of electric mobility. So what you say now, who's going to innovate more? Are you going to innovate a 4-stroke combustion engine versus an electric? Which one is going to get better in terms of performance now and the next 5 years? I'm not a betting person, but I can guarantee you that the electric bike will be more efficient, will be a lot more innovation will be put into that than the combustion one. That's for sure.
So we've got a couple of interesting comments in the comment section. So one, si King is saying KTM Super Adventure E, puede. Now, I want Bianca. Bianca, can you load the picture that Julian shared from 2012? This is from the other one.
Oh, 2013, yeah.
This is from 2013.
Yeah, that's me on the right.
Julian's on the right, 2013, and these are KTM.
Can we zoom in on the bike?
Bikes.
Yeah, it's the Freeride E.
In 2013.
So this is the problem, right, with the industry, and it's the same thing you're seeing in combustion cars as you're seeing this in motorcycles. So KTM had this technology already years ago, and I remember we were sitting in our global meetings and we were talking about how we're going to launch this, and the incentive structure just simply wasn't there for people within the organization to sell it because of the price point, because of the range, and it was just too new. But this is 2013. The technology of this bike hasn't necessarily changed in the last almost 10 years, basically, right? And this is the issue you're seeing in big brands. It's one of the reasons why when you think about why Tesla is the best example, and I don't like using Tesla for everything, but they're the best example of a car company that zoomed past ahead. Even though Volkswagen has billions of dollars, Toyota has billions of dollars, Tesla was able to create something so unique within a short amount of time. They cut the 100-year process into less than 10 to create one of the most important brands in the world. And it's the same thing for motorcycles. Emission standards are constantly putting pressure on these brands to make money, to innovate, to get scale, and not put those R&D dollars into a new product. So what ends up happening is this concept of build versus buy. You need innovation, you need entrepreneurs to create something really crazy and unique. And you're going to have a lot of failures. But for every 100 failures, you have one Elon Musk, right? And that guy ends up changing everything. So for Volkswagen to build what Tesla was able to do, I would bet, and you can read this, there's lots of articles about this, it would probably cost 3 or 4 times, maybe more. I would argue that it would cost 3 or 4 times more than what Tesla was able to do. Because in a big organization, you don't have that innovation. You have too much safety. The incentive structure is not there to have a gigantic outcome. It is to maintain, you don't have entrepreneurs in Volkswagen. It's one of the reasons why they're so far behind, right? And why Tesla is so far ahead, basically, okay? And the same thing in electric motorcycles also. Again, 2013, KTM had this technology. They had all the money. They had brilliant engineers, German, Austrian, European engineers, but they simply weren't able to because the incentive structure was not there for them to really create it. That's number one. Number two, brands like KTM, Ducati, Honda, they have very, very old supply chain networks. They've been buying stuff from these supply chains for the Japanese for hundreds of 100 years. They've been buying the same stuff. They have the best possible price. Okay. More likely than not, that Japanese supplier is not necessarily building magnets for electric motors. So a brand new, let's say, supply chain has to be created. So the upstream, it's very difficult to displace the supply chain. When you go downstream, even more interesting. Mm-hmm. In Europe and America, you actually can't, it's hard to cut a dealer because of the laws. And think about your motorcycle dealer in the Philippines. Are they going to want to sell an electric bike? Do they know how to? Right? So you multiply that problem all around the world, your supply chain is constrained, and your demand, the customers, your dealers are also constrained because they don't know how to make money on this bike. Why do I want to make on this electric bike? I'm already doing very well with KTM or Ducati or Honda. I can finance this, whatever. Why do I need to do anything different? So this is where a new brand or new brands can come in. And that's what's happening right now.
Okay, so there are a couple more questions, I think, in that we want to handle. I just want to say Sophie Tarok just got a new set of electric wheels, and her mom posted a story, and I saw her zooming around their garden. And speaking of electric bikes, you're not limited by that form factor, like you were saying earlier, right? Because it's so easy to create those one-wheeled vehicles, to create those e-scooters that people are standing on. The technology is so simple, and for somebody like Sophie, it's liberating and it's so cool. She has this awesome like chair with these two powered wheels, and I was blown away. I thought it was awesome.
Alam mo,
So
iba
you-
pagdating sa application ng electricity and mobility, hindi lang tayo constrained sa mga wheeled vehicles. Madami rin mga electric powered, yung mga parang mga exoskeleton.
So to the point of
Go
IBA,
ahead.
that's a really, really important topic. And this is the reason why the naysayers that say that, because they don't, when you think about what's dominated mobility for the last 100 years, basically, let's say powered mobility, it's two things. It's just a car, four wheels, or a motorcycle. That's it. There's nothing else. And because of a combustion engine and the mechanics of a combustion engine, you have to have an engine in a certain place in a car. Okay, and then rules make it so that the engine has to be there, for example. The same thing for a motorcycle. It has to be in a certain part. Okay, with electric, you have a battery that could be maybe this big for a motorcycle, and your motor can also be this big too. So what ends up happening is you have, and they can be whatever they want basically. So you end up having a lot more flexibility in design and form factor. Think about like these electric kick scooters, right? Can you imagine putting a combustion electric kick scooter? That doesn't make any sense. You blow up. True, but it's probably
the range is actually quite limited, and it is noisy as hell. So there are limitations to these.
Pero they're loud and annoying.
Well, and that's another thing too. Noise emissions is becoming a big deal in cities. Also, it's another reason why, especially in China, noise emissions is one of the main reasons why motorcycles aren't allowed. Combustion motorcycles are not even allowed in cities. But to the point about electromobility, you're talking about two things. You're talking about the motor and you're talking about the battery. And battery technology is getting more efficient, smaller. Okay, you cannot say the same thing about oil. Oil, it stays the same no matter how you do it, basically. Okay, engines aren't getting that much smaller. They're getting more efficient, but they're not getting smaller. What's happening in electric is both are getting smaller and more efficient. It's hard. What I'm trying to say is it's hard to do that with a combustion engine. So again, my bet for the next 5 years, electric motor and battery will be significantly more advanced than a combustion motor in terms of the rate of growth and innovation. So when you think about electric mobility, you end up thinking about kick scooters, bicycles, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, mini cars, mini quads, all different types of form factors which could not exist with a motorcycle or a combustion vehicle.
Yeah,
so the future of electric.
Chair. You can't have a gas-powered chair, right? that now it's
You can't use that indoors if it's in combustion engine powered.
Yeah.
There's a great question from Gino Rufino. What's the carbon footprint of charging electric bikes as compared to the emissions of normal motorcycles, assuming you're not using solar power? And I think Dipsy King has a follow-up question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, Julian. The question, is it true that mining the minerals on batteries is more damaging? You heard it from Jeremy Clark. So that's obviously a skewed question because he got freaking sued by Tesla. But from Jeremy Clarkson. But my take is the impact of fossil fuels is incredible on climate and climate change. Right?
Kaya ang pangit ng weather natin ngayon dahil sa fossil fuel.
True. But Julian, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is it is a loaded question, and it's definitely something that the industry is facing. But I would say this: what is going to get more clean? Battery technology in the next 5-10 years, and the way you mine it, the way you get energy, or oil. Getting oil. Oil is not going to get any better than it is now. It is stuck at this level. It's already at peak. Whatever you're going to do. What the difference? Exactly. The difference with electric is that while the minerals are damaging and so on, the technology for battery cells is also evolving also. We're not done yet. We're not at the end state of the best and most ideal battery. Okay, right now, the revolution in the last 5 to 10, 15 years actually was, believe it or not, driven by cell phones. Cell phones use lithium-ion batteries. The thing in your car is a lead-acid battery. So that then gave way to manufacturers in China and so on start thinking about how we can use this and other things, and that became for cars. So lithium-ion batteries, a different cell composition. But the future of batteries is also turning to something completely different, where they become smaller, more efficient, easier, and better to mine. The question about charging is a very important one also. It depends on the country. It's actually an impossible question to answer, because in Europe, it is significantly cheaper to charge in Europe because they have renewable energy sources like in Germany. But in the Philippines, because the energy source is coal, is geothermal and other things like that, it's going to be obviously more, it's going to be more damaging. So it really depends on where you are. But the one thing that's clear is that the world is moving more towards renewable energy as a source. So the question is, within 10 years, what will be better? And my bet is it's going to be renewable energy with the dominant way that most countries derive their energy. I mean, in the Philippines is a good example. Ayala is investing heavily into green technologies. And I think that's a great thing, for sure. But in Europe, it's already there. Europe already has a lot of renewable energy sources. The same thing and Germany is planning to go in the next 10 years to go fully 100% renewable energy, which means then that riding an electric bike in Germany will be significantly more, let's say, environmentally friendly relative to than a combustion. That's for sure. It's also the reason why in the next 10 years, they're actually phasing out combustion vehicles in Germany. 10, 15 years, the German country is going to get rid of making combustion vehicles.
The other thing is,
announced na si
the biking.
BMW niyan, di ba? O si Mercedes?
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
Everyone has to. I mean, India. Okay, I can tell you. But this was a government push. India made a mandate. India now is, remember, the biggest motorcycle market in the world. The biggest, 18 million bikes a year. Okay. In the next 10 years, you can Google it. Prime Minister Modi basically said that they're going to get rid of electric combustion. You cannot buy a new combustion vehicle. So what does that mean? Think about why motorcycles are cheap in certain parts of the world. It's because of supply chains. Without India, without China, you don't get KTM Duke, you don't get a BMW 310, you don't get a Kawasaki 250, you're not getting a Honda Cub. Do you think those parts are coming from Japan? No, they're coming from countries like India and China. So if India goes electric, what does that do for the world? It makes the entire supply chain of making electric cheaper. You see what I'm saying? So you cannot look at this now. You have to look at this where it's going to go. And in China already is almost at parity of electric motorcycle sales relative to combustion motorcycle sales. Almost parity. Okay, when I started at KTM 10 years ago, China was by far the biggest combustion motorcycle market in the world, the biggest. Okay, every year it just goes down, 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 down. Combustion vehicles, because they outlawed in cities. Electric keeps going up, 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 up. And you can see now the correlation between sales of growth in China for electric and the cost of batteries and everything going down. There's a correlation between the biggest markets, the biggest supply chains, and cost and demand. There's a very, very clear correlation.
Okay. There's a lot of, so you know what, I thought people would be debating in the comment section, but really they all love gas. Obviously, we all love gas-powered bikes, right? But everybody's leaning towards, right now, electric is practical. And I agree, but like King said, where was that? Pa-review po ng electric bike sa Garage King PH when they're here. I'd like to experience, once you experience a quality electric bike, it gives me almost the same feeling as riding my raw 690, no technology KTM Duke, right? It is crazy. So definitely, King, we'll have a meetup when things are better. Gino, we are giving something away, but it's probably an electric bike t-shirt. And we'll figure out how to get that here.
Hindi, may ipapabigay tayong iba, electric power source. Galing sa Iwasa.
Power bank? Oh, bibigyan naman. That's true, electric power source from Iwasa.
All right. Yeah.
Magde-develop na yan ng baterya para sa electric.
Deep cycle, oh. Ay, actually, meron ng mga deep cycle batteries ang Yuasa.
Oh, anyway, eto si Gino may sinasabi to eh. Asan na yung comment nito?
I'm looking for it.
Paki-up nga, Miss Bianca. Ayan, parang weird when back, English na naman eh, is so serious. Di ka ba magiging serious dito? Hirap na ako umintindi ng mga pinagsasabi ng mga to. Kaya, sumakit talaga katawan ko sa pakikinig sa mga to eh. Alam mo, isa lang ang kailangan ko sa buhay para mawala yung sakit ng katawan ko. Play mo na yung OBB, Miss Bianca. Electric massage chair from OGAWA.
Ang galing ng segue. Winner.
Because
winner.
You have to take care of yourself. Yun lang. Teka, may mga set of questions dapat ako. Number 1, there's a misconception on e-bikes are being slow. Inaral ko pa yung English yan. Kaso, tinanong na nila iba, nasagot mo na rin. So, meron pa ritong question na what does the PH need to become all electric? Parang nasagot mo na rin eh. Na government push lang talaga. So, meron pa akong tanong na naisip ko kagabi, sabi ko, will I buy a electric bike? Kaso yun na rin yung tanong natin sa raffle eh. Huwag na natin patagalin yung mag-raffle na tayo.
All right.
Basahin na natin yung mga sagot ng mga to.
So usually we give the otterbox case to Julian, but because he's in Singapore, I'm not doing that. So we're gonna give it to you guys, and we're gonna throw in the awesome support from Yuasa Adventure Sport, which is fitting for this show. Tama ka, Jolly. I didn't realize it until you said it, that it is an electric battery. So you're gonna get a big discount from our friends at Yuasa Motorsports. So Bianca, let's.
Teka, magbasa tayo ng mga comment nila kasi magaganda rin yung mga sagot nila.
Sinishare ko eh.
Share mo ba?
Ang dami.
Paying attention.
Ano na? Spin that wheel, Bianca. Maximize muna. Oops.
What's an angle? Oh, nice.
Jete Arboladura. Nax. Congratulations to you.
You've won an OtterBox case, care of OtterBox, Thank You Box Philippines, and me.
Sa susunod, dapat may tunog na yung natin, yung roleta. Parang yung sa video okay, yung tan 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 tan.
So, Jete, please PM us, and then we will probably get back to you in like a week or two, because this isn't really our job. But we will get you the case. We will get you the case. Promise yun. I hope you're in Metro Manila, though. But hanggang Iloilo umaabot yung jolly shipping. All right. So as usual, this is how we end the show. Julian, what's your definition of Tunay Na Rider?
Authenticity. Authentic motorcycle
In-English
guys.
mo lang yung Tunay Na Rider eh.
Yeah.
Well, tama man.
Tama naman.
It's authenticity. It's authenticity. It's you guys are cool, man. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of obviously IBA. I'm a big fan of IBA for years. I'm a big fan of what you guys do, and I think it's great, to be honest with you, because I think the motorcycle community, it needs more voices, and I think especially in the Philippines. Believe it or not, I don't know if you guys. One more fun fact: the Philippines, as of 2019, not 2020, because 2020 was a really difficult year for motorcycle sales, was the fifth biggest market in the world in terms of motorcycling. 2019. And when I started at KTM in 2011, I remember telling everyone the Philippines is going to be a huge market. No one believed me because it was not even in the top 20. Like it was a no nothing country that no one really understood or really wanted to understand. And then it just skyrocketed to become the fifth biggest market, bigger than Thailand. It goes India, China, Indonesia, then the Philippines in terms of overall motorcycle sales. So
Thailand.
Bigger than in 2019 it was. 2020, because of the COVID situation, they handled it a little bit better, so sales were better. But in general, I think the Philippines will remain as the fifth biggest market in the world for a very long time. And I'm very happy about that because I'm still a part of that, and I was very much a part of that with KTM, and very much I'm still happy to see that happen because I love motorcycles, and I know you guys do too. And to have guys like you kind of be the spokespeople of that growth and in an authentic way is awesome. So I'm super happy and proud to be on the show and call you guys friends. So it's great.
And when you do launch Scorpio globally, we need you on the show to talk about it.
Cool.
And to wrap up, every single one of the two-wheeled things that I've bought in the last COVID lockdown, except for one, parang dami kong binili, are all electric, right? I bought 2 electric bicycles. We got that ridiculous scooter. We got one of those standing scoots, which scared the hell out of me. That is freaking the most dangerous, scariest thing I've ever ridden. Everything's been electric. And I'm just having a blast. And one of the things you shared before, Julian, is it's not about the bike. And you went into this a little earlier, right? It's these electric mobility solutions are an entire ecosystem. You have solar, you have charging stations, you have battery power, and then you have the bike. The bike is really the end point, right? If you think of it like as an ecosystem, this kind of technology makes sense for the Philippines, where you have 7,000 plus islands. We're in Jolo, where I'm from, you're using diesel plant for power, right? A power barge, which is ridiculously expensive and may brownouts all the time. Electric, solar, renewable mobility is the solution for 7,000 islands.
It is, and I would be happy to talk about this more. I mean, this is where my thesis goes a bit deeper. I mean, when you think about electric two-wheel and four-wheel mobility is just the kind of the most viable product. That's really what it is, because what you're talking about is disrupting energy is really what's actually happening here, right? The battery itself, the more technology that's put into the battery, it's not just going to be for cars. Cars are just a very big industry. We can find a way to make it work. But imagine now if you had a swappable battery, you could actually charge your house with some of the batteries that you can get now. Some of these new batteries now, lithium-ion batteries, have so much power in them that you could actually charge a little house or a little hut or whatever.
You know what I do? If there is kung may bagyo, if there's I'll translate. If there's a hurricane, what I do is I get the battery of my bicycle, I bring them up because I know that can charge my phone a ridiculous number of times. It can power lights, the electric fan. It is my power source. It's my backup power source right now. And it wasn't made for that, but it's got so much power stored into it. That's what I do. That's my habit.
Like this thing here, right? This is a 10,000 watts or something like that, basically. At the smallest battery, which weighs maybe like 8 kilograms, a swappable battery, for example, that's like 1 kilowatt, basically. So it's literally like 100 times more powerful than that. So, and again, battery technology is just in its early innings. It's still expensive, even though it's a lot cheaper. We're just in the beginning. The technology has been being put into battery technology. And ultimately, the bet for battery technology is to store a ton of energy in the smallest amount of space. And this is the reason why you can't stop innovation. Oil, you can't compress. You cannot make more of it, basically. Batteries are just going to get smaller and more efficient. So there's a lot more runway for battery and engine technology to get better. So the point about renewables, imagine this world where, for example, you have, the Philippines is blessed with, tons of natural resources, just not enough of an incentive structure to create a renewable energy source. But you're getting the private sector to do it, and you're seeing this now with Ayala and AC Energy. I feel like I'm like an ambassador for them, but I worked with them very well, and I love the team there.
They're all good people, man. They're awesome. They're forward looking. They care about the country, and they care about motorcycles.
you have to understand also, right? I mean, I don't want to get too economical based, but the Philippines is not a producer of oil. You have to remember this. The Philippines relies on importation of oil, which means you import it, you have to refine it, which is expensive, and then you have to sell it, which also is expensive. The whole process is very, very inefficient and expensive. And it's one of the reasons why you have a fluctuating currency, why you have massive inflation, is because the price of oil all around the world dictates inflation, basically, right? So this is very getting economical. I don't want to get too much of an economic story. And it's more the reason for countries like the Philippines to adopt Bitcoin, to adopt electric, because these are just better ways that benefit the country, which is much more naturally blessed with all the other resources, water, solar, blah, 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 blah. It just makes so much more sense if they just looked at the country and said, well, why don't we just take what we have here and produce energy on our own instead of having to buy it from China, from Indonesia, from Saudi Arabia, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't make any sense, actually, when you think about it. But the incentive structures are not there yet. And all of this is just going to happen, basically. So in time is the ultimate decider of all of these things. In the same way that, but you can go back in the early 2000s, Steve Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft, you can Google this. When he was asked, what do you think about the Apple iPhone? And he laughed. And this is one of the most memeable things you'll see. He was laughing about the touchscreen phone makes no sense, using a unique battery technology, using a touchscreen. Who the hell that needs a touchscreen? We just need BlackBerry is the king. And he laughed in 2003. Look what happened now. Yeah, he's still super rich, but look what happened. Microsoft.
He owns the basketball team. He retired from tech.
Yeah. But Microsoft could have been the biggest, even bigger. They completely lost the game in terms of. I see the comment there. He owns the Clippers, exactly. Yes, he owns the Clippers.
Not a bad gig. On that note, I just want to ask one more thing before we wrap up. Julian, are you dual citizen?
No, I'm not dual citizen.
Damn it!
I know.
Because I would have said vote for Julian for president because
someone give me platform. I would love to be. Right? I would love to be more of a part of it for sure. Someone help me get a citizenship in the Philippines. That'd be awesome.
We'll figure it out. And on that note, that ends our 68th episode. Thank you so much, Julian, for joining our show. I know this isn't your normal thing, and you're super busy. But we really appreciate and I know that this was one of our most informative educational shows. And Buck, Jolly, what did you guys learn something?
Dami ko natutunan. Number 1, English. Ito, may kinumpos ako. Teka. It doesn't matter if electric or internal combustion engines. The important is all the riders in the world are hawak kamay para sa pagbabago. Thank you.
I love Buck. We love Buck.
I know Jolly.
Happy birthday also.
That's a hard act to follow. So
that's tough.
That's our show, man.
Kailangan makachat ko lagi ito si Julian para mapolish yung English ko.
Okay,
I don't know.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Next episode 69.
69. Si ano yun, di ba? Si Kat
we've got Catrice Kirolf. So that's going to be another deep dive, another educational episode on how to do TikTok, how to ride, and how to be awesome.
Thank you, OGAWA!
She'll
Thank you,
tell us
thank
about
you.
her Ironman trip, ride, and yeah,
Ride Manila. Ride.
Ride Manila.
KTM. Love KTM. Let's go.